Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Oh, I went out last night and we had to reset the system, and I don't like the way that I sound. So y'all give me 1 second to try to get this thing together, because yeah, this isn't really working for me. Okay, hold on. Phantom power, blah, 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 blah. Compressor. Oh, Jesus. Hold on. Let's see how that's. Nope, that's not better. I'm just gonna have to deal with it. But we are here this morning to talk with the young man who is not a stranger to the Java Cafe. He is like a father. I call his son my brother. I call his daughter in love my sister. We have shared meals together. We have talked about the Bible. We have talked about just life in general. And he's very special to the Java Cafe. And so I see the family in here this morning. Aaron is in, so is Anthony, as they are often, but I think today is very special for both of them. As many of you know, a couple of months ago, we did share and we solicited prayers for I cannot call this man Anthony Davis, for Pops. And he's going to share his testimony with you. He reached out and he wanted to say, Jimmy, based on what happened with me, I wanted to bring awareness to this and also share a little bit, of his story. And so we're going to hear that this morning. And so I'm so glad to have him here. He is not a stranger to the Java Cafe at all. And so I'd like to present to some, most of you present to, but introduce to a few, the great, wonderful Pops, Anthony Davis Sr. It is so interesting, sir, for me to say your name because I just hardly ever say it. And when I say Anthony Davis, it's usually Junior. So it's going to be Pops today just to keep me with all due. It's going to be Pops.
All love.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So for folks that don't know who you are, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, and just some things, your coach AD on social media. Tell us a little bit for folks that don't know who you are.
Wow. It doesn't seem that long ago, Jimmy, that we were here celebrating Black History Month, right?
Yes, sir. With you and Anthony.
Anthony Jr. and I were on, and that was a tremendous experience, a tremendous show. You know what I think about you, man, and I just want to give some love to the mother's board, and all of the Java family, man. You guys have shown my family, me, and you guys have shown us so much love that it's just it's amazing. It's only, I call it a God wink, and I'll talk about that later. But my name, Anthony Lawrence Davis Sr., born and raised in Washington, D.C. My wife, Lisa, and I have been happily and wonderfully married. This past September of 2023 represented 30 years of marriage, over 30 years, I believe close to 33, 34 years of a monogamous relationship. It hasn't been linear by any means in terms of illness, in terms of, just ups and downs, twists and turns. But it's been great nonetheless, and God's been with us all the way. And so, I'm father to Anthony Davis, Anthony Davis Jr. And we also have a daughter, Courtney, that we love, and 5 grandchildren that we love and adore. You heard Jimmy refer to me as coach. I served our community for over 20 years as a basketball coach and a mentor to the youth of the area, and it became my brand. And my wife, I remember years ago, she said, "You've just become like when I met you, you weren't a coach, and now that's your brand." She used the word brand before brand became a buzzword, right? And so that was like wow, and I still remember that to this day. And so, I'm grateful and thankful to be here today. It didn't have to go this way, because anyway, we'll get into that in a little bit. So I'm gonna give it back to you. That's enough for me right now.
Pops, this is basically your show. We were very intentional about holding this space today. We may have had it on the list, but I wasn't. You brought to our attention that it was Stroke Awareness Month, and so whatever you want to talk about, you mentioned you had stats. I will maybe set the stage a little bit because I saw on your post when we heard, about what happened. You had made reference to burning the candle sort of at both ends. You had made that reference. And so I want to set the stage there because you talked about being a coach, you're a husband, you're a father. And in being a coach, yes, you coach basketball, but you're also, in some perspectives to many, a life coach.
Yes.
And often you take that stuff on, you're an advisor, you're a wise man, you're very soothing. There have been times when I've talked to you and even this morning, I'm sitting here with the mic and whatnot, and nobody really ever says this to me before we go live. You're like, Jimmy, have a great show. I'm like, wait, what? And so, with that, you were active in doing a lot. And so I want to also I want to set the stage there about just being busy and then let you go from there and share the journey and the story. And Pops, this is all you. There's nothing, I don't want to, or what. Do you, sir? This is you the co-host today. You ain't a guest, you the co-host.
My man. Thank you, sir. So, as I was, when I first went into the hospital, back on March 14th, and the next day after I was admitted, I heard my mother's voice, because my mom used to always say, and she called me Tony, please don't take license to do so. I hate when people think they can just automatically call me Tony. No one calls me Tony, not even my family. It's a few, but anyway, I heard my mom's voice, Tony, you can't do everything. And she was, at that time I was in elementary school, and I was, so this whole, like you just said, like this whole busyness and not, incapable of saying no, always ready to jump in and help, lend a hand, what have you. Like this didn't start, 5 years ago. Like this goes back to elementary school. I was in the band. I was in the glee club, which was the chorus. I was a patrol boy, the street patrol. What else did I do? I was in the drama club. Like I was doing all these things, and then that was in school. But then outside of school, I was in Boy Scouts. I took music lessons. I was doing all these things, and I said this to my wife the other day. Like, thank you, Mom, for exposing me to a lot of things. But at the same time, too, I find myself now later in life, the jack of many trades, master of some.
I like that clarity in what you did there, because most people say master of none, and that doesn't give credit to some spaces where folks have mastered something.
Absolutely, yes, sir. So, like I said, my mom's voice was ringing in my ear. You burning the candle at both ends, and I, as Anthony, was growing up, and especially as he became a young adult, late teen, I used to say that to him as well, right? You burning the candle at both ends, right? That was my mom, right? Defiant young man, but yet I still now remember lessons and words that both my mom and my dad said to me that at the time, I'm like, I don't want to hear that, it doesn't apply to me, whatever, right? But that was just me being defiant and hard-headed. But now it takes on a whole new and different meaning for me.
I wanted to ask you to share a little bit of, you knew you didn't feel well. and you went in and you got admitted. When, if and pops with where you're comfortable.
Sure.
When the doctor revealed to you what had happened, what was your response at first? And I kind of know you, and I know probably first you were like, "Are you sure?"
No, actually, Jimmy, it did not surprise me when the doctor came to my room and officially told me, because the word stroke was being, lobbed around here and there through the medical staff, and it wasn't certain, of course, until I had the MRI and that revealed. So let's back up.
Yes.
On Thursday, March 14th, it was around between 12:30, 1 o'clock. I was at lunch. I was at work, and I was eating my lunch. And oddly enough, that particular day, it was a little out of the ordinary. I actually proctored SAT test with just one student, which was that wasn't normal, of course. So there was a little bit of stress involved. There was some other situations going on outside of work that brought me some stress that particular day. But I was sitting eating lunch. I sat outside. It was a beautiful sunshiny day. I was eating my lunch, and I had just got off the phone with my wife, with Lisa. We were just chit-chatting. I just called to check in on her because I had the time to do so. And then when I finished eating, I stood up. And in the moment that I stood up, I felt my head started tingling on my right side. It was a sensation I had never felt before, Jimmy. I've been lightheaded before. I felt faint before. I've been dizzy before. It wasn't that. And obviously, like you said, I felt like something was wrong.
Yes, sir.
I proceeded to take my trash and put my trash, go back into the building. I went back to my work area. I told my supervisor, I was like, I'm not feeling well. She said, what's going on? And I said, and she asked me about if I was hydrated, so forth and so on. So what I knew, and I don't even know, going back to how many years ago, I was diagnosed as hypertensive, high blood pressure. So I thought I thought that maybe my blood pressure was excessively high.
Yeah.
So I work in a school. So I went, and I was able to walk. But I was experiencing some unstableness, I guess, if that makes sense, some balance issues. And that's actually the acronym talks about balance, and the acronym for recognizing stroke. But I walked from my area, across the across to, it was a long walk.
Yes, sir.
And I went to the nurse's office, and I just said, and the nurse and I have a great relationship. I said, can you please take my blood pressure? I have high blood pressure, but I just want to make sure that it's not excessively high. And she took my blood pressure, and she said, yes, it was high, but it wasn't alarmingly high, if that made sense. And then nothing within her, I guess, or anybody else, recognize anything different about me. She said, you may want to, have go maybe check this out later, but it wasn't any like emergency type response, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
So I went back to my work area. And I took it easy. I sat at my desk. I didn't do anything excessive. I continue not to feel well. But I stayed at work for the remainder of the day. And when I got off, or even before I got off, I things, of course, things racing through my mind. What's going on? What is this? What is this? Because I would like to say I'm very in tune with my body, and very in tune with, something, I'm not adverse to going to the doctor. But that leads into another conversation right there that we'll bring up.
Yep.
But in the moment where I was sitting, I thought about, like, maybe is it a stroke? And then what I did was I called Anthony, Anthony's best friend and best man at his wedding. They've been friends since middle school. He had a stroke at like 20. I think Jonathan was like 24, 25 years old. He had a stroke. And I thought, like, let me call Jonathan to see like what he experienced, in that moment of having a stroke. But his circumstance was, everybody's circumstance is going to be different.
Yes,
but I was unable to raise him on the phone. And so again, still contemplating, maybe it's a stroke. But nothing prompted me to say, look, I need to call 911. So I said, I drove to work that day, and I was like, okay, Anthony, I want to go. When I leave here, I'm going to the emergency room. I'm going to the hospital where my primary care physician is headquartered, a place where I was very familiar with because my wife, Lisa, used to go there for physical therapy, a facility relatively new, and one that, I was always impressed with the service, right? And it was way cross town. Like people ask me, how many hospitals did you pass to get here?
Pops, and I'm like, go ahead. I'm not going to
Monday.
Monday.
I was determined. So, but again, and then I got blasted, right? Like, why'd you drive? Like, I didn't know what was wrong. But in my mind, like, you may call it, people may call it justification, but here we go. I said, in my mind, I prayed to God, I said, God, I'm going to drive, because it really wasn't any other way other than calling an ambulance. It was then no other way for me, or calling somebody to come pick me up. But I'm a very independent type guy. Try to be, but we all need people. But yes, that's another conversation too.
Yes,
but I said, I can, I'm gonna drive, and I'm gonna drive to the emergency room, and I justified it in my head. I said, I don't feel that bad that I'm incapable of operating a vehicle. I prayed to God. So I'm saying all this to say it wasn't just a flip decision, right?
Yes, sir.
I contemplated this, right? I wasn't, because everybody kept giving me grief, man. Why'd you drive? Why, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, look, it wasn't a flip decision. And then lastly, I want to share this because this is going, I recorded an episode for a colleague's podcast coming up in September. I have a history of substance abuse. And so again, just in terms of justifying, I've operated a vehicle under much worse conditions than what I feel right now.
Let me just hold space for a minute. You really trying to convince us that you put a whole lot of thought and justify it. If you really put a lot of thought, you wouldn't have. But I'm Monday morning quarterback, and you're here. You're on the road to healing. And so please continue to tell us the journey over to the hospital across town.
So we on the highway. What we, here in the DMV, we have what we call the Beltway, which loops around the whole city. I'm sure in Boston, I'm sure they have something similar.
No.
But this highway, 4-lane highway, is rush hour. So I rode the right-hand lane. I got behind one vehicle, and I stayed behind that vehicle. I didn't pass anybody. I didn't speed. I went with the flow of traffic, right? And I felt I was very, just hyper and focused, like I'm driving and I'm going to get here. There was no impairment, I guess, at that particular time in terms of, the stroke was on my right side, which affected my left side in terms of function.
Yeah.
And so, my right hand, my right foot, everything was fine. I got there safely. So when I pulled up there's a separate parking lot for the emergency room, and the parking lot was full. And mind you, it's maybe 6-ish. The parking lot was slam full. I could see inside the emergency room looking through the window. It was packed. So I drove to the parking deck, and then I walked again, a long walk from the parking deck through the hospital into where the emergency room was. And I actually began at that time feeling struggling to walk. Okay. Like I had to stop at one point because I was like, whoa, like it had, at that particular time, it had become apparent, right? There's something, again, now I didn't know it was a stroke, but it was apparent that it was something that was affecting me, right? It had an impact. I was, my walk was funny. I was like, I wasn't losing my balance, but it wasn't normal.
You knew something was off.
Yeah, for sure. So when I got to the emergency room, they took me back to the end. I told the receptionist what was going on. They took me to the, how they do the door admitting part, or not the admitting, but you know what I mean? They take all your information, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. The lady was like, what's going on? I explained to her. She said, come on, follow me. They immediately took me back to triage. The nurse there called the doctor that was on duty, I guess, at the emergency room. And she, came in, she asked me a bunch of questions, so forth and so on. She was looking at my face, and she was saying there was a little droop in my, they're talking amongst themselves like I'm not there and don't hear what they're saying, I guess. But, I think Sister Raquel talked about that yesterday, right? Just being an advocate for yourself. But, she ordered me to have a chest x-ray. What else did I have? They drew blood. And it was one other test they did.
Did they do a CT or MRI?
I think it was a CT scan. Yeah, that was it. And so, and then after they finished all that, they sent my behind right back out to. I'm thinking I'm busting in the line. I said, these people gonna be mad. I just walk in and go back to the back. But I went right back out into the waiting room, and I sat there, Jimmy, for 6 hours. Which later on became alarming to one of the medical staff, and they actually made a report because they felt like that should not have happened like that. And I thought, I was at the point, patience is not my virtue.
Really? I'm surprised to hear that from you, Pops.
I was prepared to go home. I was going to go home. I was like there for 6 hours. And so I said, you know what? I said, I'm going home, and so the receptionist was like, well, Mr. Davis, we can't tell you how much longer it's going to be. She looked because I told her, I said, because other people kept going up to the counter repeatedly, how much longer, what time? I said, I don't want to be that guy. I'm not going to do that. But after I positioned myself, I sat right in front of the counter so they could see me. Right. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going up here. I'm going to be that guy right now because it's been too daggone long. And so she said, Mr. Davis, when I told her I was going home, we have a bed for you. Now, mind you, at this point, it's after 12 midnight at this point. So now Thursday has bled into Friday. My wife is calling. One of my best friends is calling, because my wife called him, she's, with her situation, she was very alarmed. Yep. And so anyway, they finally took me to a room, observation room, whatever. I fell asleep because I was so tired, man. At that point, I had been up almost 24 hours.
Yeah.
Because I wake up extremely early, to take care of some things before I go to work.
Yes, sir.
And so, they took me to the, I fell asleep. I rested peacefully. And when I woke up, they said, we're going to admit you. They took me for the MRI, and then they subsequently took me up to a bed in the hospital, on the floor. Yeah. Yeah. So
go ahead, Pops.
No, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure I answer your question. So when the doctor said, so amidst all of that, right, of course, the idea of stroke, had been presented, right? It was in the air, right? And so when the neurologist came to my room later on that Friday afternoon and said, Mr. Davis, you have actually had a stroke, it wasn't a surprise. I wasn't alarmed. I wasn't troubled. And I'm not saying, oh, Anthony, you this, that, and the third, but I knew, it was inevitable, Jimmy, because I had been doing much more than what I've alluded to so far today, this morning.
You're dropping a couple of things there that I'm sure Anthony and Aaron are listening to. Again, it's behind, it's after, it happened. So a couple of things I want to share that Collian has said is that thank you for your transparency, Coach AD.
That's my good friend.
Yes, sir. It is just amazing. And I wanted to name what Vicado said. This is something that has affected my family hard in the past year. I myself had a minor stroke, and my step pop suffered a minor stroke. And then our brother and good friend, and I'll fuss at him later. Man, listen, laugh out loud. The emergency room these days aren't even the emergency room. If you're not bleeding or visibly dying, they will not take you seriously. What Anthony Davis Sr. just described has happened to me many times, including a moment where I also believe I was having a stroke. We'll talk about that later. Mm-hmm. And so, Pops, I'm going to take a quick break. One, give you a chance to kind of gather if you want to take a sip of water. And we're going to share another issue that men have to talk about. And I just have to name that you're talking your story. Vicado just mentioned he had a mini one. Real just mentioned that he thought he may be having one. And so this is something that I'm glad we're bringing attention to this morning that I didn't know. V, I didn't know about you, and so this Pops, thank you for reaching out about this. We're going to just share also a quick message about a prostate cancer and prostate health as well, which is a huge issue with our demographic. We'll be back with you folks in just a couple of seconds.
I'm a very sensitive person, and I feel the pain of my people. They know me, they call on me, and I assure them that I'm not a provider, but I am one who cares. I always say to them, well, it's better to know than not to know, because if you know, you can do something about it. Think about the loved ones around you. Think about the ones that love seeing you come through that door. Take the step and get tested. That's it.
Save lives and get screened for colon cancer. For more information, visit boston.gov/cancer.
Hey, everyone. We are back with Pops, Coach AD, Anthony Lawrence Davis Sr. When you threw that, I said, we got the whole government this morning, and we also learned what not to call you. I've always seen passion come out of you, but I've never seen that side of like, don't try it. Just make it plain. Don't nobody call me by the T word. And so, Pops, before we went into break, you were sharing the day of going into the next day, which was Friday. And you named some things about the emergency room, and a lot of folks in here resonated with that. And so that's something that we definitely have to keep attention on just when you go in. And we learned some things yesterday, about, and I guess in this ER case, when Raquel said to us to ask the doctor, what did they employ to rule out, oh God, I got to go back and look at the right verbiage of it. But Mr. Aaron, you can remind us. But, we need to do that in the emergency room as well. I'm so sorry that you had that part of the experience. I want to also name, Pops, just a level of grace, because this started during the day. You went back, stayed at work, drove across town, sat in, I'm peeping the red cup. That don't do that. Taking a sip while I say that.
I need a black Java though. I need a black Java cup though, Jimmy.
Yes, sir. We're going to Miss Teresa. We got to get Pops a black Java cup. sat in the emergency room for 6 hours. And if you know anything about strokes, time is a huge factor. And so, sir, we just want to name the grace that was applied to your life, because it could have been you. I'm not going to fuss. I'm not going to Monday morning quarterback. You drove all across town. And Aaron and Anthony, did you hear him after the fact still trying to justify that he drove? It happened. We thank God that you got there safely. And so they shared this with you, and you've been on this journey. Anybody that follows Coach, some of your fans are on, you've well documented your journey. And let's name that we're not spring chickens, and dealing with, sicknesses and illnesses and different things like this at this age is very interesting for us. And so can you share with us does it come from your acumen of coaching? Does it come from the elementary time of just being a go-getter? Someone just said here, Jerome just said you're actually sharper, post. And Koyan, I hope I'm saying that right, but God is absolutely right. Koyan, thank you. Where did this determination come from that though this happened, an attention getter? I've seen you post sort of some language around an attention getter. Where does the strength, energy, and drive come from that this is not going to master you and keep you down?
I think, I shared the term God wink earlier.
Yes,
and
sir.
I want to share, if you don't mind, because
go ahead.
In the hospital, in my hospital room, I said, the phrase stroke of genius came to mind. I was bad. I was like, I got to get this a hashtag, right? I was like, I was a stroke of brilliance. I was like, nah, stroke of genius is more a common phrase, right? So I was like, stroke of genius. And I was like, you know what? God, I honestly believe, Jimmy, I'm no doctor. We talked about some of the stats I have, and whether we get to them or not is irrelevant, but I'm no doctor and I don't play one on TV. I am a commissioned minister, but I'm not going to preach from any moral high ground. But I do believe that God divinely ordained the stroke to happen. But at the same time, too, he divinely did not allow for me to experience anything more significant than what I experienced in terms of disability, permanent disability. I still have some deficits now, but it's, about little over 2 months later, I still have some weakness on my left side. I still have some other things that I'm dealing with. I have to go when we get off here. I have to actually go for assessment for my outpatient occupational therapy. So I'm transitioning. As I've been a little while now without therapy, so I've been doing some walking, riding the bike, and so forth on my own. But it's been a couple weeks now since I had in-home therapy when I first came home, and so now just dealing with medical insurance and scheduling and things of that nature. Like I'm like now, it took me up until today and tomorrow where I go to schedule my outpatient therapy. But I mentioned the God wing, Jimmy, because I want to make sure before we run out of time that I share this. And I'm gonna read. It's a book entitled God Winks and Divine Alignment. Is written by a gentleman named Squire Rushnell. And in this book, he describes God winks as an event of personal experience, often identified as coincidence, so astonishing that it could only have come from divine origin. He goes on in the book, in the very beginning, right? He talks about an encounter with a car rental agent, right? And the car rental agent was offering him this optional GPS navigational system, right? They called it Never Lost. And so the author said he thought it wouldn't be great. We said, wouldn't it be great if we all had a GPS? But in his words, right, in his language, right, the GPS referred to God's positioning system. Then lastly, on this piece, he says, right from birth, we come equipped with a sophisticated navigational package that through an internal voice of intuition and God winks, divinely aligns us with people as well as events who assist us in reaching our destiny and keep us from losing our way. And so what I experienced on March 14th, I believe, Jimmy, was a God wink.
Yes, sir.
God, Anthony said, I'm going to say this. All right, all the children, cover your ears. My son told me it was God telling you to sit your ass down.
And if you know Anthony, there was a cadence that was said with that.
Yes,
but you know, and I'll be very honest with you. Your situation and that post about burning the candle at both ends resonated, sir. We talk. You're familiar, you know, with the cadence in which my life absolutely moves in. And so I got to be honest with you. This has impacted me in a manner where, and folks, I've been a little more determined around, you know, self-care. And actually I was out the other day and stopped and looked at the tree and looked at the little curves in the leaves and all the stuff that you've heard folks talk about here on the platform. And so I just wanted to share that part where the God wink, and if I be honest, I wouldn't want this to happen to anyone, and especially to you. And we appreciate the God wink, and it went but so far. Take a little bit to the word. What the enemy meant for evil, it turned out for your good. Who would have known if this didn't happen in March and it happened in May, 2 months of whatever caused this to happen? So that's that whole piece that a lot of us can presume in the God wink. And so I want to thank you for naming that. Mother, is this, wait a minute, I want to make sure, is this Mother? Yes, it is.
Yes.
Mother, hi, Mother Davis. We don't get to see her on, and we always say pops and whatnot. Mother, it is good to see you on. We send joy, strength, and everything your way. We know, and Pops has been transparent about you all supporting each other. And so you all are definitely, we talk about Aaron and AJ being a power couple. Y'all a power couple
thank you
in demonstrating the power of unconditional love. We had you and Anthony on. Maybe soon we need to have you and Moms Davis on and just talk about real love and commitment and just that term of till death do. And we've started changing it until death parts us, not death do us part, because it's not. Well, I'm not going to go there.
I like that. I like
yes,
that.
Sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Pops, I did want to give you the opportunity. We are getting toward time, but you said you did have some stats, and just the three of you, Picado and Real, naming that. What stats do you have that you may want to share? Because I know you put some research, and if you don't, that's fine. But you reference to them, and so I want to allow space if you do have them.
Yeah, like I say again, just a caveat. You know, I'm not a doctor.
Yes, sir.
But I do not play one on TV. But I've through this process, I've been gathering some information and things like that. I have, haven't synthesized it all, necessarily curated, but at some point, wanting to put something together where I can go out to the community and share my story, but also share some of the things that I learned. And this, it's on public domain. So this information is available to us all. So, I just real quick before, as a coach, right, this thought, Jimmy, came to my mind a few days ago, right? As a coach and an educator, I always had to do first aid training, CPR training, AED training. I had to be certified, right, to do that stuff. And I've had opportunity, although brief and few and far between, to actually administer first aid to individuals, to students, to young people. But nothing about me. And I could, I thought back, I was like, did we discuss stroke? And I couldn't. I'm sure we probably did through the training, through the first aid training, but not. You know what I mean? Again, like the idea that I could, maybe could have, within, we talked about the necessity of quick response.
Yes, sir.
And so there is something that's called the TPA, a clot buster. And it has to be, it's something that they can give you a shot within, it has to be within 3 to 4 hours of stroke symptoms, and it could bust the clot, it could break the clot up, and it will keep you, keep you from maybe experiencing some more severe
Yes,
symptoms, results. So that was one thing. But then, so I was looking at the Stroke Awareness Foundation. They're headquartered in California. These are U.S. statistics. 795,000 people per year experience a stroke. Over 140,000 ends in death. 60% of those deaths are female, 40% are male. Stroke is the #1 cause of disability.
Yep.
And the 5th leading cause of death. That's heavy right there, right?
Yes, sir.
Because again, the reality is I didn't have to be here. I did not have to be here.
Yes,
and I've
sir.
had people, tell me like God had still got some work for you to do.
Yes, sir.
So we know you probably have heard the acronym FAST, F-A-S-T, which stands for face, arm, speech, and time. Then they added the B, so now it's BFAST, B-E before the F-A-S-T in terms of an acronym that kind of jog your mind to understand what's going on. Is balance and eyes. And so one of the things I did, I mentioned the fact early on when I was trying to walk to the nurse's office, my balance was a little shaky, right? I wasn't about to fall or anything like that, but that was something, again, that it was a sign that's what was going on. I wanted to share real quick. I talked about the TPA, and I want to share these risk factors. I'm going to stop right here. It's high blood pressure, obesity, high cholesterol, narrow arteries, diabetes, arrhythmia or AFib, previous stroke. Now that's Jimmy. Now that while I was in the hospital, when I was in rehab, we had a stroke support group where people both inpatient, people that were in like myself, but then there were people that had previously been in a facility and now they on the outside, but they came back for this support group. And there were at least 3 individuals in there that shared the fact that they had multiple strokes. And let me tell you, man, I went to Lottie Bar, for you Old Testament scholars out there, right? I went to a place, I was like, oh my God, I can't, you know what I mean? And we were in one of the day rooms. I was on the 7th floor. We were down on the 6th floor. But then, shortly after the group was over, they wheeled me back to my room. And I was in a bad space thinking about this, not, potentially, this could be more forthcoming. But I said, you know what? I said, Coach, you can't stay there. We can't focus on that. We focusing on getting better. Right. And I dismissed that thought from my mind, but it does still occasionally come up. Right.
Yes, sir.
Because I've, how, what's your favorite car, Jimmy? You got a favorite car?
My favorite car, honestly, would be a Lexus Jeep. I don't think they make them anymore, but I wanted a Lexus Jeep.
So I'm sure the color would be red.
Oh, of course.
And so I say that to say, like, we, in your mind, or when you see something that really resonates with you. So if you saw, you see a red, a Lexus Jeep, right? And then, you see one, and then you probably see 2 or 3 or 4 more as time goes on, right? They seem to become more prevalent in terms of your vision. Well, the word stroke, I say that to say, like, the word stroke has been hitting me. TV commercials that I've heard before, but never resonated, because now the word stroke is a hot button. you know, the former mayor of DC, one of the former mayors, he was at a graduation ceremony. He was on stage in a wheelchair. And they indicated, the reporter was like, Mayor so-and-so, former mayor, has experienced multiple strokes. And then, we were watching, when Anthony and Aaron were here, we were watching Netflix special with Kevin Hart received the Mark Twain Award at the Kennedy Center. And one of his good friends, his name is Keith Robinson, came on. Keith Robinson is a comedian as well. I hadn't really heard of him before then, but he spoke. He was one of the speakers at one of the roasters of Kevin Hart, right? And he had 2 strokes. And so it's just this is, oh my God, man. It's, you know what I mean? Like God wink.
And a stroke of genius, Pop, because,
Amen.
You could have just simply, went through your process and healed, documented, wrote a book or something. And so the stroke of genius for us today is the fact that you were willing to come on and be transparent and share and bring attention to this. Anybody that watched this, that's going to go on the after watch, that has a family member, they're now familiar with what BFAST is. I just wanted to clarify that real quick. Mm-hmm. BFAST is paying attention to balance, eyes. If their Pops referred to that, one of the doctors talked about, they could notice a little droop in his face. The number one thing, if you're ever talking to somebody and they talk and they mix up their words and they're still going and you notice something, you need to say, hey, say that again or whatever. That was one of the number one things that stood out to me in learning about stroke. And then time, and we talked about that. So Belinda did ask Pops, can you clarify, you had reference to TPA? And she had just wanted clarity about that. She said, what was that called again? And it was TPA, right? Not TPS?
TPA, yes.
TPA.
Yes.
And they can give that to, if you get that within 3 or 4 hours of experiencing a stroke, which a lot of times a stroke is attributed to a clot, a blood clot.
Yes.
And it can be caused, as you said, by many different reasons. And so Pops and I both are not clinicians, but between your healthy job of working in medicine and in the ER, and we give you enough that you can go talk to your doctor and get the information that you need. And Felicia, I agree. This is definitely the stroke of genius, Pops. Today was the genius in you to make sure that men and women are aware, but it just, this definitely is going to be more on my radar, and others that are listening as well. And Real, Mikado, I need to make sure that y'all go and are getting checked out and being sure. V, you said you had one before. Real, you wasn't. Well, I don't know. Already texted him during the break. Pops, I love and I appreciate you because, again, the folks that are watching on Twitter and Instagram, we need to make sure and understand that this is a reality. And if you have these other diagnoses of high blood pressure and diabetes, it just puts you at a higher risk, for having a stroke. And so, Pops, I wanted to give you the last word. And I also wanted to at least put one resource for folks that they can go. What was the website that you said you had got your information from?
One of them was the Stroke Awareness Foundation.
Okay. I also see American Stroke Association.
The American Stroke Association, which is an offshoot of the American Heart Association. So you can go to American Heart Association and it'll take you, they have a separate, pages with stroke information on there as well.
We put it in it. I actually, I have it here. I meant to put it in the comments. I'm going to put a hyperlink, Pop, so they can get it right after the show. They can go back in the comments. And this is the website that is www.stroke.org. And you can go here and get the information, and them, spinning off of the American Heart Association, that gives a little bit of credence to making sure, that information is there, along with the site that you mentioned as well. Pops, I want to give you the last word before I go and just share some announcements. I appreciate you, sir. For sharing this with us and being transparent, and being real, because as men, we always don't, we don't.
Hey, Jimmy, it can't come from anywhere else but a true authentic, right? Through true authenticity, because that's all I can bring, bro.
Yes, sir. And that
Yeah.
is our goal. And we share that. And so, Pops, I appreciate you, man. Get ready. We don't want to hold you up to get ready to go to your appointment, sir. I appreciate you. I love you. If Mother's still on, we love you as well. Mothers and everybody, because Pops does go back and look at the comments and stuff. Show Pops some love in the comments. And you know that the platform is here.
Amen.
As you progress as this advocate in this space, we're here.
Amen. So, just to wrap up, love you too, Jimmy, man. Thank you so much. Just real quick, I would love to end with, kind of going back to that thought about burning the candle at both ends. For me personally, I was working a full-time job. And this is not, again, not patting myself on the back or anything like that, but just, I had people ask me, well, what caused the stroke? And I'm like, man, I really don't. I'm not asking what, why, or how. I don't even know what. I know I had a pontine stroke, which is called, and the pons happened in the pons area of my brain. I don't know what type of stroke I had. It was referred to as small, but I had someone tell me like you had a brain injury, big, small, or whatever is a brain injury. That's what you had. But just going back to burn the candle at both ends, working, full time, working some extra duty hours at work, and then also a couple of days a week working a part-time job, full-time caregiver to my wife. And again, that's not, that's the faithfulness that you mentioned. That's the covenant that I made before God, our family, and our friends back on September 11, 1993. But I say all that to say, like, those things were causing me, I was stressed out. In my mind, long before the stroke happened, that's why I said it didn't catch me by surprise. I said to myself, Anthony, you cannot continue to go on like this. And so God winked. I want to say this, people often say, to use the analogy of the air, when you're on the plane and, if the cabin loses pressure, the oxygen mask would drop down and, put your mask on first before you help somebody else. And people been telling me that for years. And, just in reference to how I live my life, typically putting other people first before myself. And people kept saying, you got to take care of yourself, because if something happened to you, what's going to happen to Lisa? And I was like, I understood that. But at the same time, in my mind was like, well, yeah, that makes sense, but I got to do what I got to do.
Bruh. I mean, sir, Pops, yes.
No, you good. I got to do what I got to do, right? And is no Calvary to the rescue in our situation. I want to say this, and I want to share this publicly. My son and my daughter in love, they packed up and came and stayed here for almost 2 months.
Yep.
The beauty, how can your son do that? The beauty is they own their own business. And I said it just like that.
Did you
they
come
own their own business. So they
get right into a flex.
They ain't have to fill out no leave slip. And the other thing though, Jimmy, and you know this, they got a great group of individuals that work with them.
Yep.
That hold them up.
Yep. And hold them down.
Absolutely. And so my son, I went to the hospital on a Thursday night, Friday morning, Saturday morning, 8 a.m. My son walked into my hospital room.
Yep.
I was like, dude, what time did you leave? What time was I kind of knew he was coming, but I didn't know. Unsolicited, without any provocation. I mean, other than, of course, I had a stroke.
Yeah, there needs to be no solicitation.
Yeah, but
I hear you, Pops.
I've been a child too, and I was selfish as hell. Excuse my language, but you know what I'm saying. My son showed up, man.
Yes, sir.
Everybody was like, "What's going to happen to Lisa?" I was in a hospital for a full month, 4 weeks.
Yes, sir.
And my wife was fine. without me. She probably was more happier.
Pops.
But the reality was, and I felt, I didn't stress out about it. I knew she was going to be okay. Because I'm not God. I'm not the ultimate authority. So, you know what I mean? So it all took care of itself. And so God bless Aaron. Man, oh God, I love you guys, man. I just, you don't, you know, we've talked about this many times, but you didn't have to do what you did, but you did it. And you were here for 2 months. You know, yeah, they went back and forth. They traveled back and forth. They went other places, making sure their business. And I told him, I don't want you to sacrifice. Your business is more important, right? But he did what he had to do. He was able.
Oh, there was no lax on the business end. Trust and believe, Pops. And they as someone who they take care of, there was no lax. And you know, for others as well. And Charlene is on Instagram saying this is so timely. Wow. Oh, okay. Charlene. So mothers, we need you to keep Charlene's uncle in prayer. She says, this is so timely. My uncle who lives with us just had a stroke this morning. And so a strong family is so important. And so Charlene, we're going to ask the mothers, if you don't mind, you can just put his first name and initial over on Instagram or text me and we'll make sure we get his name to the mother's board to keep him in prayer. This is timely, Pops, and it's just affirmation of this space we're holding and what we're doing is still needed.
Absolutely.
In our community. And so, you know, I didn't mean to interrupt the love that you were showing AJ, Anthony, and Aaron, but Charlene went and jumped on Facebook. So Ma and y'all add Williamson or Coco, add Coco to the prayer list, y'all. He just literally had a stroke this morning. And so Pops, you as well, and Mother is in here, and she laughed at the fact when you said that she probably was a little more at peace. But that's the love right there. That's the love right there. We also just want to feel to name my sister, who is a widow, and who understands the importance of love and family. And so, Lasagna, we're just lifting you up as well. And Charlene, we got you, sis. Headed to BMC in a few. All right. So, and Charlene, I know you're connected, but let me know if you need me to send a couple of texts to some folks down at BMC. But Pops, I really appreciate you, man. And it's evident that this was needed today. We didn't know that Charlene was going to come in and just, I don't know what small little pieces of information she got, but Charlene, we're here to support and do whatever we can do to help and support you here. And thank you all for praying for Coco, who's Charlene's uncle. Please continue to keep Pops in prayer and Mother as well. And Pops, I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks soon. And I'll close out with this for you. Michelle D. Smith says, Coach Pops Davis, muchas gracias for sharing your testimony authentically. Continue to be holistically healthy. Love you, Pops. You know I'm here, man. Yes, sir. See you soon, man.
Peace and love.
All day. Everyone, that I did well toward the end when he talked about Anthony and Aaron, because we're I was able to go in business with them because of the family and just how they roll in their integrity. And so we were in contact, you know, asking, I'm telling them, y'all know I got connections over at MGH and whatnot. Like, y'all need some second opinions or whatever, insurance offs and like the physical therapy and all that other stuff. It's a lot. So along with Pops, can we just also lift Aaron and Anthony as well? For a lot of us at this age, you know, we got to pay a little bit more attention. I had to ask my mother the other day, is it Mon, you're on here and get me later. If there was anything severely wrong with you, would you tell us? We need to start having these conversations with our parents. So it is Thursday. Today's my Friday. Well, not technically, not until 8 o'clock tonight. I wanted to remind everyone that in this spirit of your healthy Java, and also that it is Lupus Awareness Month, along with Sister Roxy, Auntie Roxy, that came in from Lupus in Color yesterday. This evening at 7 p.m., we're continuing the acknowledgement of Lupus Awareness Month with Asiria Daniels, who has a master's in public health. She is a public health strategist and also health equity enthusiast. And so we'll be back this evening at 7 p.m. for a special after dark, after dark and your healthy Java kind of don't go together. But we'll be back this evening at 7 p.m. Again, I want to thank Pops for being in the room with us today. And knowing the Davises, they probably did not get to see Pop show them the love because they're probably in a meeting. So I'll remind them and make sure. Miss Selena said, amen. People like to hide sickness. And it's funny because Selena, my mother, they go way back. And she's not saying that about mom, but just in general. But I had to ask my mother, did you? Because me and my sisters talk and we, so anyway, and I'm my family's healthcare proxy for a lot of them. Yeah, we're going to get ready to go, everyone. Thank all of you for being here today. Denial is real, Auntie. Good to see Auntie Java in the room, as always. Selena with her greeting, good morning, Java Nation. But denial is real. And you all know it's taken me a long time to get on a journey to being real about my health. And so we're getting there. But again, please keep Charlene's uncle in prayer, Coco, and also all of the Davises, Anthony and Aaron, and also Pops and Mother. And I believe he said his daughter's name was Courtney. So keep her in prayer as well. And the 5 grandchildren. Miss Teresa, get off of here. I'm not messing with you. Have a great day, everyone. Please come back at 7:00 this evening. And I'm jumping because these allergies, Lord Jesus, you can hear them trying to act up. So I'm off of here. We'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll see you guys tonight at 7 p.m. Oh, I needed to mention this, and I've been meaning to mention it. We'll put a flyer out. I have to have minor dental surgery on Monday. I told y'all my smile is purchased. I'm so real about that. And though, any surgery is whatever, I don't know what the recovery time is going to be. It could be a day or two. And so next week we are planning to cast, some former videos. And so definitely not on Monday. The surgery is on Monday. Mayor is moving to, she comes on her first Wednesday. She will be with us on the 12th at 9:30. So next week may be, let's run it back week in the Java Cafe and share some of your favorite and my favorite episodes. So keep me in prayer. It's minor, this surgery, but it's minor. So I'm not, going in an OR and all that other stuff. So don't stress out and all that. Still keep me in prayer that God guides the hands of the dentist and all that other stuff. And then we'll come back. And y'all will see this wonderful new upgraded smile. And no, for everybody that I'm not going to get no I'm not going to get no veneers and all that other news reporter stuff. People were joking about that. No, that's not happening. Just wanted to let you know that next week there may be a little change in some programming. All right. So tonight at 7, Monday, we'll run it back with a video, but come back tonight at 7 and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Ma, for the prayers. And thank you all again for praying for Pops Davis all along, and also Coco, Charlene's uncle, and Real. I'm not messing with you. I'm getting off of here. It's 10:08. UCB, y'all already got y'all during 90. One of these days, one of y'all little gift cards is going, I don't know, pay for a bag of chips and some salsa for a Java with Jimmy. Get together. Y'all have a good day. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning. We'll see you guys later on this evening at 7 p.m. Have a great day, everybody, and we shall talk to you soon. Peace.